Video marketing is king. I'm a bit biased because we have a video podcast. I'm constantly creating video content, but let me tell you, the statistics don't lie. Let me read you a few of these. 54% of consumers want to see more video content from a brand or a business that they support. 85% of all internet users in the US watched online video content monthly on their devices. Using video marketing could boost your leads by 66% annually. I literally have a list of like 135 different video marketing statistics. And the point of it is, if you are not currently in the weeds of creating video content, then you are missing out in your business to reach more people, to impact more people, and to get your message, goods, or services in the hands of the people that you could be reaching with video content. But you're struggling with it. You're saying, I want to get in front of my phone camera. I want to turn on the camera, the lights, and I want to get to making more of this, but I'm nervous. I'm afraid. When I go on video, I feel inauthentic. I lack confidence. If you're saying any of those things, then you're going to love this conversation today with our very, very special guest. I always say very special guest, but this is a very, very special guest because today we're speaking to Pat Lorre, and I'm going to introduce you to Pat in a minute, but Pat and I, we've known each other for a long time now. It's crazy. We've known each other since, I believe, early 2020, maybe 2019 even, when Pat and I actually spent a year on the board of directors for the National Speakers Association. And if there's one thing you're going to love about Pat, there's too many things to just name one, so I'll give you a few. Her energy is outstanding. Her positivity is fantastic. She just makes you feel great. She's an educator, and all those things combined is a recipe for success, especially with video content. So you're going to love this conversation. When you take away any piece of value from this conversation, all that we ask is you share the show with one person who could use it the most. We don't run ads. We don't use sponsors because we don't want to interrupt your viewing experience. So share the show on social media, in conversation with your friends, wherever it happens organically. So without further ado, let's talk to our guest expert today on video content marketing. Her name is Pat Lorre. And for those who don't know Pat is an award-winning video storyteller and an expert on how to master your confidence and authenticity on video. Pat has a background as a television news journalist and has interviewed everyone from President Clinton, Malala, Jerry Seinfeld, and Rod Stewart. Quite the list of names. In addition to her production company, Headline Productions, Pat works with C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits to help them to be more authentic, talk about their brand more strategically, and capture their attention so that they can confidently show up and crush it on video. Pat, I'm so happy we made it happen.
Brandon, thank you so much for having me. Oh, this is awesome. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm glad that we finally had you on the show. I don't know why it took a year to get you on the show, but I know you've been super busy with your corporate clients and everything you're doing. So the universe has aligned, and here we are.
Today is the day. And isn't it a gorgeous day? The birds are out, the sun is shining. It is spring, and I am revved up.
It's getting to that time of year. I'm pumped for the warm weather. Some people listening always have warm weather. And to you people, I'm very envious of that. But Pat, check this out. Your book came out recently, right? Be Authentic on Video, the playbook. The subtitle is 18 Steps to Build Video Confidence, Create Engaging Content, and Attract Your Ideal Customer. So my first question for you, and by the way, congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
It's incredible. I love the artwork on it. I love the structure of it. It's in a very easy to consume format, which is amazing. Why did you decide to make the book Be Authentic on Video? Why didn't you title the book Be Authentic in your blog, Be Authentic on podcasts? Like, why video for you?
Oh, okay. Well, video is my jam. The first time I ever appeared on video, my first paid gig was 1989. Okay. And I was volunteering at the time as a intern at a cable TV station. And I was like, I'll do anything to be, on your show. And so my whole DNA, everything I've ever done, starting my whole career has been on video and back in 1989. And so I never let that go. And I've been video storytelling since that time, started out as a television news reporter. And then after I left the business, and it has something to do with the reason why I even wrote this book. There's a big why behind I wrote this book. But to me, video has been a part of my life. I love the art of video storytelling. There is nothing more engaging, more authentic, more emotionally moving than the power of video. Even the stats that you said in the beginning, I mean, video is where it's at. I hope you're in on it. I mean, I hope your audience is getting in on it. But, if you don't know how to be yourself on video, this is the book that will help you get there.
Yeah, that's a fact. And there isn't a lot of this out there. I mean, there's different content strategies where video is a big part of them, but there isn't a lot of people out there talking about, okay, well, this is how you can actually feel good when you hit record. These are the steps that you can even, and I know you talk a lot about this and it's in your book. These are the steps you can follow to get yourself energized before you even hit record. Like we think about, we think of video content and we think we got to hit record and just know exactly what we're going to say and have it be very unscripted. But even this conversation, I mean, for those watching the video podcast, I have a list of notes here. I have a list of topics that I would like to touch on, but sometimes I don't get to all of them. And I will say it's very, very rare that I ever hit record and I don't prepare for a conversation. It's almost, I mean, you've heard the quote, if you fail to prepare, then you're preparing to fail, right?
Actually, I haven't heard that one, but it makes total sense because you can't really just wing it, And I'll have to tell you, like when I started out, it was all recorded video and then it was live video. And then there was a time when I was so afraid to do live video. So that's part of my story that I really want people to know about. And that's the entire reason why I wrote the book. I think a lot of people get hung up on self-judgment and a lot of people freak out and they get very nervous when you're, having the circular lens stare you down, basically, because it is intimidating, it's super intimidating. But it doesn't have to be. And going live was like an internal fear of mine for a very long time, even after doing it for a very long time. And I want to let people know that you can overcome that fear. And that's what I specialize in is getting rid of those stories and overcoming that fear so that you can step out and be yourself. Because for so long, even when I was hitting the record button or going live, I was completely faking it. Inside I was like, I'm swallowing, I'm not breathing, I'm having shallow breathing. And I just want to rush it, get it over with and get it done. But isn't that a shame? Because that's your opportunity to just to embrace who you are and embrace your message and get that message across to other people who really need to hear it. So if you can just chill and calm down, wow, what an impact you can have on other people.
So how did you get over that hump where you had that fear, you had that inauthenticity? Like how did you move through that?
Okay, so for a long time. So I'll tell you that when I was on live television, and this was like early 90s, I had been in the television business for, I don't know, 6 years or so. And I was on live TV and I froze. I had this moment of literally freezing and being like, I couldn't find my words. I paused, I swallowed, I freaked out. After that moment that probably was like 1 second for me, or 1 second for the audience, it was like an eternity for me. I literally put this thing in my head. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. I can't be on television. I'm going to choke. I'm supposed to be the expert. And if I'm looking nervous, I don't belong here. So what happened, Brandon, was that I got out of the television business and started my own video production company in the mid 90s because I wanted to control everything. I'm not going to do anything live. I'm going to do everything taped. I'm not going to be talent anymore. I'm going to be the behind the scenes, the writer, the producer. And I am not going to be in that position where I can embarrass myself. So I stayed hidden under the rock for so long, for 20 something years. And internally it was and it was a secret, by the way. I was keeping a big secret. And so I caution people, don't keep that secret. Keeping that secret will only hurt yourself if you're suffering from fear. I want you to exploit that secret. So that's what I did when I wrote this book. I told the story of how I froze and how I didn't feel good enough. And then what I started to do is I started to kind of swim up to the surface of the water and say, I'm letting the story out and I'm doing it in a big way. So at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, when, you know, the lights went out, this was about 2 years ago, right? March 13th. And it was like, okay, we're in a new world. I'm like, I'm conquering this once and for all. I am not letting this story control me. And I think, Brandon, you know, a lot of people get controlled by that inner story that they have inside their head. So I said, this is not controlling me anymore. And I started hitting the live button on Facebook, and I started taking chances, and I was hula hooping, and I was singing, and I was dancing, and I was basically blabbing on and on and on. But you know what? I was like, okay, this is my channel. This is my forum, and this is my chance to be me. If you don't like it, don't watch. I don't care. But I'm getting over it. And honestly, I built it up day after day after day on Facebook Live, and I just did it. I went for it. And not much else was going on in the world, if you'll recall. You know, businesses were shuttering and people were shut inside their homes and everyone was on social media. I'm like, I'm just going to have my own show. I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And it allowed me the freedom to finally say, oh, I'm being me. And you know what? I like who that person is. And I was nothing like the person you saw me before on video. Because before I was all buttoned up and like scripted 100%, everything there. In fact, on a teleprompter on my phone, because I would do these video recordings and I would put it all on a prompter and I could read it flawlessly, even with inflection, even with body language. No one could ever tell. But there was such a difference when I said, pull the plug from that teleprompter and I'm just going to speak from the heart.
Yeah, no, I remember even when I first became a leader at the company that I worked for, and I had to give even a conference call. So this wasn't even a Zoom or anything like that. It was a conference call. And I literally wrote down word for word exactly what I was going to say throughout the call. Like literally like probably 3 pages. It looked like probably like a presidential script, right? And I'm on the call just reading from my notebook. Thank God it wasn't Zoom, because then it would have looked even weirder. I would have my notebook out like this. But it was just so obvious that I was reading. But no one ever asked me like, hey, were you reading? Because most people that are listening are like, oh my God, I would never want to be the person unmuted talking on the conference call. But I found that it was a lot less nerve-wracking later on to just have 3 points that I wanted to make sure that I hit when I hit record, when I joined the conference, when I was in the Zoom meeting, making the presentation to the team, whatever it was, having 3 points and just stating at the beginning, hey, my goal for this conversation is to touch on these things. The first thing we're going to touch on is this. These are my thoughts on that. And moving from that whole essence of being scripted to unscripted was just so liberating for me. Is that the same for you?
So liberating. And, you know, you had a really good framework there. And that's what I teach people too, to just like get those 3 points and make a conversation around those 3 points. Now, did I ever do that? No, because I don't know. I was in this like self-exploration where I just wanted to chat and open up my heart. And it felt so good. I have to say, every time I do a live, I've come alive, you know, because I'm really honoring who I am. And I'm loving myself. And I think part of it is really accepting yourself. You know, we put so much judgment on who we are, who we're supposed to be, our titles, our credibility. And I'll tell you that I feel so much more credible now because I'm being true to myself, authentic, and however I speak and present myself. And I'm not trying to be someone else. I'm not trying to fit in the mold of who I think I should be. I'm just speaking from the heart, talking about what I know about. If I don't know something, I'm not pretending to know something, because that's silly, right? And I know people get caught up in the when they're doing presentations. They feel like they have to be that expert if they're doing a Zoom. And if they don't have the answer, then they're going to be really, you know, look foolish or held accountable. But there's certain ways around that. You know, just be transparent. I don't know. I'll check on it. I'll get back to you. Okay. You know, and it's like, if I knew half of the things I know now, you know, back then, I wouldn't have put myself through the torture, you know, and that's why I wrote the book. And, you know, the first title of the book was Own Your Square, right? Because when we were in Zoom, I'm like, you got to own every square inch of the space that you're in, you know, from the lighting, from the framing, from what you're wearing, from how you're showing up, from your energy. You talked about that earlier. You know, you got to show up and you have to amp your energy up. Before we got on, I was like listening to 70s disco and 70s 70s disco. I mean, I go from like different phases, but you know, I grew up with 70s
You
disco.
love your Katy Perry too. I know that's one
I
of your,
love my Katy
yeah,
Perry. I gave her a little break and I pulled up the 70s because I don't know, there's something about like, you
like
know,
Bee
you got
Gees.
into like a groove of whatever makes you feel good. So put that music on and dance around and get into the groove and be like, you know, do a fake live with yourself, you know, and a few friends. That's what I tell people, you know, go on some of these platforms and just set the audience to one person or you and a friend and do that live and practice so that you can become better, you know, but don't go out there and like hope that it goes well, because that's not a good plan either. You know, you have to prepare, you have to have your mindset, and you have to have your points. You know, why are you showing up? Who do you want to reach? What is your message? Very basic
Wow.
things, but important things.
You had a lot of important things there. So I love the point on energizing yourself before you even begin. Like before any Zoom conversation, like not every Zoom conversation, but when it's a very important presentation where I'm conveying information or a point, before we even enter the Zoom room, like it sounds weird, but this is what a lot of high performing people do. They'll be jumping up and down before they go onto the Zoom call. So they're in a good mood before it even begins. I remember I told this story on the podcast before, so I'll keep it short, but I joined a Zoom call with a guy and I had a big smile on my face when I joined, and he looked at me and he's like, "Why are you smiling?" And I was like, "I'm feeling good. I'm happy to see you." But to some people, that seems weird. But it's like, if I'm not showing up as my best self, if I'm not taking note of how I appear before I join the Zoom, before I go into the meeting, I think a lot of the things that equate to success on video equate to success when you're talking to people and presenting in the real world too. You know, I think what you said about practice is something that a lot of people don't say. Like, don't just practice on video. Like, sure, like at some point, hit record, keep it for you. You don't have to publish the video. You can retake it as many times as you want to. But I remember with me, even back before Zoom was like the thing, before Zoom was cool, I would practice every presentation to myself in my 800 square foot apartment that we were living in at the time. I was in like this little kitchen area, and I would be presenting to literally no one. Well, my cats were there. So I would be presenting to literally my cats, and I would give the entire presentation, and I would do it over and over and over, to the point where when I actually gave the real presentation, it felt like it was just muscle memory because I've done this thing before. The idea of practice is something that I feel has been lost in this world of social media and distraction. And we see something and we think that that person was always like that. We see you and we think this person was always owning their square, always successful on video, which is why I think it's very powerful that you gave your story at the beginning, because it took you years to become who you are now, sharing these tips. And it's going to take those listening some time to become authentic and really form into themselves on camera at the same time.
Absolutely, Brandon. And you're right. I mean, I remember, well, back in the day, I was just doing these recordings and you know, when I started out, it was like I was a one man band. That's what they call it, one man band. I was a one woman band, but they called it a one man band. So what does that mean? That means I would go out and I would shoot myself standing up doing the report. And so it was like the first video selfie, right? Back in the day. And that's what we had to do because it was a startup news station. I didn't have a videographer. I was the videographer. So I used to put the camera on the tripod and I used to focus on a penny on the ground. And then I would lift it up to where I thought it was like eye level. And then I would stand back. Well, I would hit record, stand back and be like, okay, I'm going for it, you know? And I was practicing being an expert. And, you know, because I was like, I had to be credible. So I have all these clips on my social media. You'll see me when I'm out in the field. And it's like, I put on this voice and I put on this persona. And I was putting on something that I thought I should be, right? But that wasn't who I should have been. I mean, I was a 22-year-old girl. I should have just been, you know, 22-year-old girl being conversational. But that, you know, I wanted to be older than I was. But anyhow, so I was practicing being a professional, but now I'm practicing just being myself. But I do think, like, I never did a Zoom presentation before 2020. You know, because I'm a video storyteller, video producer, so I never was in that world. In fact, my first speech that I did was with NSA, National Speakers Association, in front of the graduating class when I did my talk, you know.
Wow.
And I memorized that because doing a speech is very different than doing anything on video. And
Hmm.
it's two totally different beasts. You know, you're in front of an audience for one, and then, I mean, you're in front of an audience for each one of these presentations. But when you're in person, very, very different than being on camera. You know, you don't emote. You have to, it's very strategic. You know, video is a very intimate medium, very intimate medium. So you're not talking to the masses out here. You know, you're talking in here,
Mm.
right? And you're not making eye contact with everyone. You're literally, you know, making love to that camera. And I love that camera. But you know, look, I'm being coy here, but it's true. You do have to practice, and you do have to have your points and your conversation points. And that was hard for me because I was like, whoa, this is a long thing. And I felt like I wanted to always maintain that eye contact. But I tell people it's okay. Look, I'm going to glance down at my notes. I'm going to talk about, you know, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look back. You know, it's okay. You're a human being. You're not a robot. You know, it's not artificial intelligence.
Now, I'm curious if you could go back to 22-year-old Pat Laurie on, you know, national television, right? And the first question I'll ask is, do you think it would have been possible for her at that time to have practiced being herself versus being that expert that the industry almost has set the expectation that you must be? Do you think that she would have been able to get away with being herself, or do you think that imitation or modeling to a certain extent was necessary to her moving up in her career and being noticed?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There was a formula for going, you know, even today, you watch any news channel and it is a formula. I mean, back in the day, I was doing, I don't know if you probably don't remember because you were probably in diapers back then, but it was like a current affair, hard copy, you know, it was all like tabloid television. And so the more emphatic you were with your delivery, the more credible you were. So it was almost like, you know, it was just, it was a phase in television, right? And so I thought that's what success looked like, you know, the Jane Pauleys of the world and the put on voices. And so, but no, you know, I didn't have the confidence back then to be myself. I didn't even know who I was back then, to be quite honest with you. And I've done a lot of soul searching. And you know, I thought, okay, something's wrong with me. I think maybe I should take anxiety medication because I'm getting nervous before I go on. So let me take this pill and then let me be able to chill out. That didn't work. Then I was like, oh, let me go to Pier 1. Let me buy some trouble dolls. You know, you put them in your hand, shake them up, you throw them on the table and all your troubles go away. That didn't work. Then I put a dream catcher above my bed, you know, at night. Catch the bad dreams, make them go away, make the evil thoughts go away. That didn't work. What did work was finally getting out there and exposing my story. And I have to say, it even carried through, even that fear carried through when I was in small groups of people in person, because I would be in a conversation and I'd be like, I'm like nervous about who I am. So I just didn't believe in myself. But what I want to tell people is if you make a tiny mistake or if you get nervous, well, you know, I didn't really care about mistakes. I just cared about people seeing me nervous. So, you know, to me, that's like ultimate failure. You know, if someone is seeing you get nervous, I was afraid of being afraid of going live because that would shake my credibility ultimately.
Hmm.
I didn't know how to stop that, Brandon. And I tried psychotherapy. I tried everything. And it really was just taking baby steps, talking about it and go, you know, I'm kind of afraid, like just admitting it to a couple of friends. I'm kind of nervous about this. I don't feel good about this, but I'm going to try it. It's talking about it. It's practicing. And it is actually doing the breaths, you know, I talk about square breathing in my book where you literally you breathe out, you hold your breath, you breathe in, you hold it. And you do it for, you do it for a minute or two and you will watch if you have like a Fitbit on your arm, your heart rate go down and you're chilling out, you know, and so that you won't have that shallow breathing. But really, it is all about believing in yourself and believing in your message. You know, I was talking about everybody else's messages because I was like I was a news reporter. I was an announcer. I was talking about other stories. I wasn't talking about what my beliefs are. So that's what I think makes it easier now, is I'm talking about self-confidence and authenticity. And I honestly, in my core, believe what I'm talking about. And that is half the battle. Because why are you showing up and what are you doing this for? Right?
Yeah.
What is your reason of, reason of being? What's the point? You're showing up because you want to get your views across. And even if you're talking about your views and their corporate views, you can put your spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always start with the story. That's why I always gravitate to my story all the time. I'm like, start with the story, because
Why is that important?
super powerful, because stories connect. Stories get people emotionally involved in who you are. People are able to visualize what you went through, and you automatically have to, show your vulnerability when you tell a story. I mean, if you don't, the story's probably not going to stick. But
True.
so when you're hearing my story, and when I'm talking about standing in front of a room of reporters and everyone looking at me, and that moment feeling like eternity, and that was the exact moment that I decided to end my television career. That's powerful. That's emotional. You can feel my pain. And I pretended that nothing happened, but it did. And no one ever said anything, but I started creating this big boulder of hiding. I don't want people to hide. I really don't. And I don't, that story, and I have to say, I mean, that story kept me hidden for over 20 years, hiding a secret. And I was like, I got to get rid of this story. I don't want this to be my legacy. And that's why I wrote the book. And I wanted to I dedicated it to my son first and foremost, because I always want him to have the confidence to be himself. And I don't want anybody to go through life feeling like they have to hide a secret.
Wow. Yeah, well said. I think a couple of things that really stand out from your story is you got better through experience in doing it. And also you tried a ton of different things and you created this toolbox of strategies. And for a lot of people out there, going on video is something that's as brand new as if you were learning a different language. You have to think of it as you're learning a different language, right? And it's now tech is involved and you're being recorded. And I think the big takeaway is be yourself, right? Do your best at being yourself. Realize that being yourself is an okay thing, because if they wanted you to be someone else, they would have just called that person, right? Show up as who you are. But you really started to come into yourself as discovering who you really were through this journey. Like, if you could go back and give 22-year-old Pat some advice on how she could discover who she is. And I mean, at 22, I think it's pretty difficult to do that anyways, right? Even at 30 at times, even older. I mean, we're always becoming some newer version of who we are and improving. But how would you have advised younger Pat to help her come into who she was sooner?
I would say it's true. There's only one of you. And guess what? That is awesome. So I didn't need to pretend to be somebody else to be accepted, because each one of us has unique gifts. And I know it sounds trite and you've heard this before, but look, I'm the only person in this world who has my voice, right? Who walks around in this soul. You are the only person who has your unique individual voice. That is a beautiful thing. We are all on this earth, not to be clones of one another, but to be individuals. So I would have said to younger Pat Lorre, Pat, you're awesome. Just be yourself. But you see, Brandon, what ended up happening was, when you're in the news business, they have these consultants that come in and they tell you what to wear. They tell you what makeup to wear, what clothing to wear, how to sound. Some people even like, oh, I don't like the sound of your voice. You need to do exercises and you need to do this harmonica, this whistle to get your
Really?
voice. That's what they do. Yeah.
You think that still happens?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's such thing called ratings and oh, well, the audience doesn't like you. Maybe you should do X, Y, Z. So there's that came into play. And so I don't know if I could have controlled that back then because I was young and impressionable and I was climbing the ladder and I was like, oh, this is what I have to do to get ahead. I got to listen to what everyone else thinks about me, not what I think about myself, But, I think all those lessons apply. All those lessons apply for sure right now in whatever endeavor audience members are going through is, damn it, believe in yourself because you are awesome. You are freaking awesome. Okay. And there is no reason why you can't achieve anything you want to do. And I get so angry. I get revved up about this because I hid so long and it pisses me off, It pisses me off in a way because it's like, man, the things I could have done. But you know what? Thank you, Lord, for giving me this journey. Because to me, it's like, I'm glad I had this journey, granted, late in life, whatever. It's my time now. I'm doing with it what I can, and I'm embracing and loving it. So make today the start of your journey. That's what I want more than anything for you listening is for you to just start and believe in yourself. And you mess up, so what? Go ahead, go on, move on. Just be yourself because you're freaking awesome. You can have your people that you look up to. I mean, you can have your idols, you can have your Jane Pauleys and you can have your Peter Jennings and your Tom Brokaws. And, these are all the people that I watched growing up. But you don't have to emulate them. Just be yourself because people are going to like you and people are going to like your unique stories. Look, you don't have my story. I don't have your story. I've got a lot of stories. You got a lot of stories. Let's start telling some of those stories because that's how people connect to you when you start revealing little bits and pieces of yourself, especially on social. Wait a minute, I've got something in common with that person. They're kind of like me, So that's what you have to start revealing. And it's not all about work. It's about your belief system. It's about your values. It's about what you enjoy doing, outside of work. You and I were talking off air for like a minute. And I was telling you about this like Orange Theory fitness challenge that I'm doing right now, which is, it's like an 8-week challenge where it's a physical challenge where you basically go on the treadmill and you row and you lift weights. I hate the treadmill. So day one, I'm like, I am just not going to like this because I despise going on a treadmill. I have to tell you, I went in there and they run you around. They're like, they direct you every step of the way. So it's like you start out at a certain level and then you go interval training. So you're going really fast and then you chill out. Then you go really fast and chill out. And now I love the treadmill. So I changed that mindset. I thought I was going to hate it. And every step I'm like, oh, I'm dreading this. I'm dreading this. I'm never going to be able to. And then it was over. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay. I opened up my mind. I accepted things can change when you just open up your mind.
Yeah, it's like the conversation that we had on your podcast back at the end of last year with the whole reframing idea, right?
Absolutely. You have to reframe your thoughts. It is never too late to reframe your thoughts. And especially, if you're in midlife, this is an opportunity for you. You're starting a new business or you're doing a side hustle, or maybe you want to get promoted, or maybe you're like, forget this. I'm quitting my job. I'm doing something else. Right? You got to reframe who you are every single day. Why not you? I have a sign over there that says, if not now, when? Right? And if not you, who? Right?
Yeah.
So why not? Own it.
Now's the time. Now's the time. Now's the only time. And you said, later in this journey, but you're still so early in this journey. And think about what you've accomplished, and just since I've known you, just think about what you've accomplished for yourself, how you've grown. Something that people don't see is you constantly looking to learn more, always reaching out, asking great questions, surrounding yourself with great people. Like, you are on such a trajectory of growth now. I mean, just think about how much you've grown and how early in your journey you are. And everyone listening, it's the same thing for you. If this is an untapped area for you, you're still listening 30 minutes in because you realize this is something that you either want to add more of this into your business or you want to begin doing this in your business. And I think the number one thing you can do is exactly what you're saying, Pat. Just start now. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to say, There's been times where our live broadcast has literally gone down and we've had to restart it. There's been times that guests don't show up. And you know what? You either go live anyways and you just let people know, hey, it's just going to be me today. We had some technical difficulties or whatever, but just show up and put yourself out there because you're going to get better at it with time. And I'll tell you what, I've never had a producer ever walk into this studio, this room that I call a studio, saying, Brandon, I don't like your voice. Brandon, I don't like your equipment. I don't like your clothes, right? I've never had that happen. No one's going to say that to you. And if they do say that to you, that's a reflection on them and not who you are. Because I know people who've got interesting voices, but that person is soon loved and revered for that differentness, that uniqueness that they have versus other people. So own who you are, realize what you are, take what's different about you and look at that and reframe that as a strength and begin owning your square, begin showing up and simply begin.
Brandon, absolutely. Simply begin. And thanks so much. I really appreciate it because sometimes, in this journey, you can forget how far you've come. And I'm only in my second year of doing, teaching camera confidence and teaching authenticity and all of that. And being an author, that my book just came out a couple months ago. So, because I had a completely different career, even though I was a news reporter and a news producer and a writer producer and interviewed people and all that for my whole career, that was very different than coming in, to this environment and just being myself and being who I am and accepting who I am and then encouraging other people to do the same. So this is a brand new journey for me. And I'm in my mid 50s. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you right now that I don't care how old you are. And I don't want anyone to use that as an excuse because, you're only as young as you feel. And every day is a new beginning. And so if I can start a new career at this point in my life, you can start something else in your life.
Hell yeah.
Don't let age be a deterrent.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So Pat, your book, Be Authentic on Video, the Playbook, where is the best place that we can find your book and go grab a copy now?
Oh yeah, I'll show you. So this is what it looks like. Oops, it's a little overexposed right now. Oh, here we go. Be authentic. First it said be perfect, and I crossed that out because it ain't about being perfect. You can find my book, Be Authentic on Video, the Playbook, on Amazon, or you can go to patlaurie.com and purchase it there. And also I've got tons of videos on my website, patlaurie.com, that'll just give you little tips and tricks and all that stuff if you want to have some more learning. So, I think what I say to people, Brandon, is this book is a permission slip to be yourself. It gives you all the steps.
That's amazing. Well, Pat, I am so happy that we made this happen today. I'm glad we had you on the show to share all your wisdom and your journey and everything you're working on. And I'm just grateful to have you here, and I'm grateful to know you, and I'm just grateful to have you as a friend. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. Have an awesome day.
You too. You might be someone who is a business owner. You're building your brand. You might be in a corporate world and you have more expectations on you in terms of presentations and Zoom and everything else. And if you take anything from this conversation, I hope it's a few things, not to put my takeaways on you, because I'm sure you had your own, but some of my top takeaways is be yourself and share your stories. Share the stories that you're afraid to tell, because it's those stories, it's that act of being vulnerable that is going to help people connect to you in the first place. And you'll be surprised after you tell a few of your stories to some people. They're going to be like, wow, I never knew that about you. Right. And again, go check out Pat's content. She talks about telling a story, right? She's a masterful storyteller. She's been doing it for decades. And I learned so much from Pat's story and just her own growth since, the late 80s up until now with this world of video and how it's changed and how she's grown and progressed. So rewind this conversation, go back to the parts that you need the most. And the number one takeaway for me was simply begin showing up, being your authentic self on video, because you saw the stats. Video is where it's at right now to promote your brand. And whether you are in a corporate world or you're a business, you are a brand and you must be promoting that brand. So if you took anything away, share the show with one person who can use it the most. As always, thank you so much for watching and or listening to the broadcast. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.